suffered for it.
What, in your estimation, will be a measure of the success of your tenure as the first Special Prosecutor, if approved by this August House?
For me, the success will not be measured by as crime, and will not have the culture in which politicians can direct how investigations and prosecutions must go. The problem with this country has been the timidity of people who cannot stand their ground. And I will want, and you will see that, you will find how the FBI investigation is going. Some of the things come out from the FBI. They are courageous enough to say this is going to happen, that is going to happen. If we can have an institution which is working and therefore reducing corruption, in spite of the number of convictions, I would think we would have achieved something. And that is what I intend to do. As I told you, we'll put mechanisms for vetting appointees. We'll put the mechanism for oversight while they are appointed, so that it won't be like some institutions where you go there and within 1 year, you yourself, your houses are rising high-rise. Because if you have such an institution, it cannot be admitted. There would have been no trouble. But they passed it. So what we left, it was used, and that is the law. I think it's too late to change it when others have supervised any anti-corruption. That, if I achieve, will be a success. But as I said, if there are prosecutable offenses, good ones, in the national interest, we will prosecute. If we can retrieve money, and we retrieve in their billions, we would have done well. And that is the aim. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Thank you very much. Now we are at the leadership level, and we will start from Honorable. Sorry, Muntaka. Yes. Honorable Chief Whip. The Honorable Chief Whip to my left.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Advocates speak in defense of the Constitution. And I just wanted to find out whether Article 19, I'm not a lawyer, so I'll be happy to take some medication from you. When the Article 19 talks about fair trial, I thought that is embedded in it the right for people not to be called criminals until it's been proven beyond reasonable doubt or by a competent court. Is that the understanding I'm getting from you since morning?
The right to a fair trial is guaranteed by the Constitution. It means that if you send a person to court, he's presumed innocent. He should be given witnesses who understand the language in which he speaks. Right? He must be given the right to counsel. He must be given all the access that will enable him to put up a credible defense. And all the due process requirements. You should not take false confessions against him. All the due process requirements must be met. And that is what a trial is supposed to do. And the role of the prosecutor is to make sure that he does not shortchange the accused person by hiding evidence that will be in his favor. Some prosecutors do that, but that is objectionable. If there is evidence to the credit of the defendant, it is your duty to show it to his lawyer so that he may make what use he can make of it. It is not a persecution. It is a prosecution. And that a fair trial requires that indeed there must be prosecution and not a persecution. That's the way I understand it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my understanding is that for well over 35 years, you spent virtually your youth
and training prepared me for. And that's what I've been doing. Either as a defense advocate or as a prosecutor. I wish Honorable Minister was here. He will tell you how in Tamale some pauper's house was being taken, and then I came in. The house is still standing, the family is there. They call me from time to time. I feel satisfied than money.
So, in that sense, I get that it will not be fair from this your background to conclude that somebody is a criminal when all this process has not been exhausted. Is that right?
A trial is a different matter. A discourse is a different matter. A convicted criminal is the one who has gone through due process. But if you accuse somebody of a crime, the fellow hasn't gone to trial. But if you have evidence, you may do so. Like I have chastised people, right? I think I have evidence. That's why I do so. Unfortunately, none of them has asked me to be investigated so that I can adduce the evidence. As I said, when people think you are stepping on stones, they never want to ruffle you. That is not a trial. That's advocacy. You see, and if you have the authority and the power, at that time the fellow makes that. You ask the police, pick him up, let him. But if you think he's stepping on stones and you don't do it, well, too bad. That is not a trial. That is advocacy.
So you believe that advocacy can mean that even if tomorrow this House approves you as a special prosecutor, any bystander can start calling you names and accusing you wrongly, and that will be fair?
As Attorney General,
Kumasi FM.
In the rented press, I had no mouth. I took it in my stride.
Oh, you didn't take those persons to court so that you were able to...
I took it in my stride.
Because I just heard you say that you were expecting that when you were doing those advocacy, those people would take you to court so you get the opportunity to provide...
I didn't say court. I said if they had control over investigators, they will let them investigate it. Then the truth will come out. If I say you are a thief and you are controlling the whole investigative machinery and you just sit there and don't ask them to investigate me to prove it, you can't complain later.
Oh, so when I heard you say as an Attorney General or even Deputy Attorney General, people have casted all these kind of insinuations against you. As then the legal advisors of the government, you didn't have what it takes to be able to either get the police to investigate so that you get the opportunity to clear your name.
Well, in 2012, the papers were casting those aspersions. Which police? Which police? Which were the papers? They were party-aligned papers. So how could I go to police to do what? It would be a height of madness. You know, when they were doing it simply because they knew they were protected.
I was not talking about when you just said when you were Attorney General and when you were Deputy Attorney General, people had accused you severally, but you took it as part of...
For instance, Amina Wonton, they claim I was prosecuting her. I wasn't the one prosecuting her, but it wasn't prudent for me to say it because it was one of the attorneys who was... I didn't even know her. You see, but there is a decorum in office which you must keep. So I just kept quiet over it. At the end of the day, what I said they shouldn't do came to pass because the investigation didn't come to the Attorney General's department. They got one of our attorneys and he was prosecuting it. The girl was acquitted and discharged. And I kept my cool.
Kumasi FM.
And I have been invited to meetings to prosecute people for sedition. I've said no, we won't do it. And I'm saying that in a certain office, like Attorney General or Special Prosecutor, there are times you keep a decorum. You won't respond. But as a private citizen, you have the right, as in the police, to exercise your democratic right. Read the Greek and the Roman police and see how robust Aristotle, Socrates and co. made their points.
Okay, Chairman, I just wanted to find out from the nominee whether he had a lot of trust and belief in Shrad and Yoko.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to head an investigative body. I won't prejudice my relationship with them by answering a question after my nomination.
I'm just finding out, as citizens, as a citizen vigilante, whether you had confidence or trust in Yoko or Shrad. I thought this is a fair question.
I'm saying is, my views about Shrash have been made public. I'm not sure whether I've written about Iyoko. That I'm not very sure. But my views about Shrash have been made public. But I'm saying that I'm going to head an investigatory office. And I would not want anyone to prejudice my relationship with them by having me make a comment after my nomination about anybody.
Is it possible for you to share with us what your public view about Shrash was? You said
I wrote it. You see, the problem is that Sister says I can't be a walking encyclopedia. You see, I write articles because I want them to be available for reference. I don't have the article, but I know I wrote about them.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I just want to find out from the nominee his inability to go to Shrash or Iyoko on any of those cases, some of which you have made public pronouncement and virtually emphatically talk about some other appointees. Was it to mean that you didn't trust that they would do a good job?
Mr. Chairman, I'm a constitutional defense advocate. And constitutional defense advocate is itself a constitutionally mandated function. I felt that was the better way to defend the Constitution. And I have a right of choice how I defend it. I mean, nobody can compel me to go to an institution if I don't want to. And there's an article I wrote explaining why I will not report a sitting president to an investigative body. I wrote an article like that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I heard the nominee earlier when we were talking about why he thinks the president might have nominated him, and he said he believes that the president was looking for somebody who will be fair, who will be unbiased. Is that right? Did I hear you right?
You heard me right, and you know it yourself. In 2009, you know it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to find out from the nominee whether he remembers saying that I will fight NDC with my last blood. Did you really make those pronouncements?
Have the article? Can I have the article?
Asking you.
No. Let me see the article. I told you I'm not an encyclopedia.
Honorable nominee, hold on. Do you remember writing any such thing?
I don't remember unless I see the article.
Well, fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you don't remember saying that?
Until I see the article, I can't recollect it.
Do you intend going through your articles to find out whether you find that one?
Why will I do that? You are making the allegation.
I'm only asking you a simple question because you've written so many articles, and I'm asking you whether, if you say you don't remember, is it possible for you to go through your articles and confirm or deny that?
It makes sense.
Honorable Chief Whip, do you have the article? If you have, kindly confront the nominee with it. Otherwise, I suggest you move on.
Okay. Nominee, when you wrote in your article that the Electoral Commissioner was appointed to rig the election, was that a fact or perception?
Chairman, I've answered this question already.
Yes, he answered that question, that it was based on perception.
So if it was based on perception, what has it got to do with rigging 2016 election?
Chairman, perception has a meaning, and the meaning of perception is what I depended on.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to be educated about the meaning of perception as used by the nominee.
Honorable Leader, you are an experienced member of the House. That's when something is public knowledge, you don't ask a person to prove it. So,
Mr. Chairman, the issue about rigging election, yes, is public. But his answer earlier saying that it was perception is not public knowledge. He's not saying it. And I say, in his...
No, you are asking him to
explain what he means. Because he said that it is his understanding of perception.
Perception. Is that, do we want a definition of perception, or what do you...
I just wanted his understanding. When he said it was perception, I wanted his understanding of the perception.
Yes, yes.
As a former Minister of State from 1983 through to when I left office, I act on actionable intelligence. And as I said, intelligence is not evidence, but intelligence forms perceptions. And indeed, America went to war in Iraq based on perceptions and actionable intelligence. And I have said that I act on intelligence, and that intelligence formed my perception.
Well, Mr. Chairman, so from what the nominee is saying, the understanding is that those were not factual.
If you want facts to be proved and we create the conducive opinion, I can adduce facts. I mean, that if it's adversarial. But as I told you, I will not make a comment which is not adversarial in the absence of the adversary. If it's adversarial and I'm asked to produce facts, I will look for the facts and the fellow will defend himself. But I'm not prepared to accuse somebody in a committee hearing when the fellow is not available to respond.
Well, Mr. Chairman, my understanding of all the advocacy the nominee has made in public, I don't think you give those persons opportunity to respond. You decided to just do it. Because on those ones, you are not under oath. Now you are under oath. And it is important that some of those things we are able to get them factually from you. Because when you said those things, you are not under oath. Now you are under oath.
Chairman, I was exercising a constitutional right, and every other citizen has the right of response. There were several responses. If I knew it was going to be an issue, maybe it's like that. There were several responses to it. And I'm saying that these were written over a period of time. And unless you give me the concrete things, don't expect me to say that I did that, I did that, I did that. It's not possible. And I don't want to make a comment about somebody when the fellow has no right to answer. Now that I've been nominated as Special Prosecutor, I won't do that.
Mr. Chairman, will I just ask that the nominee still holds the view that the 2016 election was rigged? 2016, because you said your Charlotte was appointed to rig. Now 2016 election is over. Do you still hold that perception that it was rigged?
Mr. Chairman, the 2016 elections was won. Clean and clear. Yeah, and you see, the problem we have in this country is that you don't know how things were put in place by advocates of constitutional defense to make sure that nobody was able, I was an activist, nobody was able to rig and misrepresent the numbers. When I was writing about rigging, we were putting countermeasures against it. You see, that's what we did. And I'm telling you, as a former Minister of Interior with responsibility for security and intelligence, we definitely put in countermeasures.
Very interesting, Chairman. But Madam Charlotte Osei still supervised the 2016 election. So if you're able to put countermeasures and what have you, and yes, she still supervised, do you still hold the perception at the time that she was appointed it was to rig the election?
Mr. Chairman, Madam Charlotte Osei is facing, if she rigged the election, she will be removed as a commissioner. I wouldn't prejudice what she's doing now by making comments when she has no access to refute what I'm saying. I mean, there's a committee properly set up on her, which could, the consequence of which could be dire. Why will I sit in this house and make comments when she cannot refute it? I don't think that is fair.
Anyway, Mr. Chairman, let's move on. Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee whether in January he was in Wesley Girls Secondary School, Senior High Secondary School in Cape Coast.
Since I was born, I've never stepped there. the best of my knowledge, I have not gone there.
So you've not been there before?
This year or any time, I haven't been there.
It's good to know this. Mr. Chairman, earlier when he was being asked about the issue at the 2012 that led to his resignation, he said that the resignation letter that he had, it was done under some conditions. Is it to understand that Mr. Nominee, my senior brother Martin Amidu, you didn't believe in the apology or the letter that you signed? It was done the duress. Is that the perception that I got? Because I was sitting here, I thought that when I hearing you, that was what I got. Is that right? Am I right?
Mr. Chairman, I said that elders persuaded me to write that letter, even against my best judgment. And the chairman of the Council of State said he was going to give it to the president personally. And I've explained the context. And I've told you that as nordness, even when you are right as a junior, you are never right. I've told you, you know it. It's only in your absence that elders will tell the elder one that, look, you were wrong.
Well, Mr. Martin Amidu, this is where I have my difficulty, because you still remain a northerner. You still have people who are older than you. You still have some uncles around. You still have probably some in-laws who are still around. Now you are going to be a prosecutor. Should circumstances of that nature comes up, are you going to barge in because you are a northerner, and as a northerner, when elders talk, even when you don't believe in it, you still have to go ahead? Is that what I'm getting?
Mr. Chairman, I've learned very hard lessons from what happened. And it's only a fool who doesn't learn from his experiences. I've learned very, very hard lessons of trusting people, elderly people. That is why I don't have friends. I keep my own counsel. So I've learned lessons from all those things. And I will work with the lessons. Nobody will push me around.
Oh.
And those elders, some of them have sent people to apologize to me for the circumstance.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee, when he wrote the article about the investigation of Anas Almia Anas, was that a fact or it was also based on perception?
Mr. Chairman, I've answered this question. I have said that Anas registered a company, and I had made searches at the Registrar General's Department, and I wrote an article. Anas is not here. I wouldn't say anything that would be adverse to him when he has no right of response. If he's asked you to be his counsel, that would be a different thing.
Mr. Chairman, in one of his articles, he wrote that Anas was commissioned by the late President Mills to investigate both the judiciary and parliament. And after his death, President Mahama made them to hold, or to, for a better word, more or less like discount that of parliament and only present that of judiciary. Is it right that that was what happened?
That was my viewpoint, which I wrote.
So, Mr. Chairman,
and you see, I said that he had a service passport. He himself came out to say, yes, he had one. That was part of my evidence. I'm saying that I wouldn't talk about Anas on that issue. Unless Anas is here, then I can confront him with the fact. You are a third person. I wouldn't want to say something about Anas when he is not here, because you don't know what has gone on between Anas and myself since the last time you saw us quarreling on the air.
So, Mr. Chairman, is it not better for us to also know, especially we are Parliament, if you say that he was asked and probably accused the former President Mahama of conniving with him not to publicize that of Parliament, I just wanted to know whether this was facts or it was also perception.
It was intelligence collected. And indeed, if I want to tell you, some of the people who told me are deceased. I wouldn't give you the names of my informants. You know that. You cannot disclose names of informants. But I have informants who gave me the information. And I acted on that intelligence. If it happens to be wrong, that's a different thing. But as I told you, America went to war. Britain went to war based on actionable intelligence. In international relations and domestic relations, it is done. You act on it. Every day we act on information and intelligence. That doesn't mean that all of them may be right, but that is the action. You have to act on it as a human being. And I did act on them.
Mr. Chairman, I heard the nominee say that intelligence is not facts. Is that right?
I said that intelligence is not
evidence.
Evidence. And if you have been following carefully in circles, I remember, I don't know whether it was Komi or somebody who was asked whether he was acting on facts. And he said, no, I'm acting on intelligence. You know, because intelligence has a special meaning. They are analyzed, and it's like with precision of mathematics. It's like a research. You come to a theory and you implement it. It's not every theory which is right, but once it has not been challenged, it stands as theory for the meantime.
Well, Mr. Chairman, so my senior brothers has canvassed this issue of our culture, our tradition, that makes what we are. Earlier in an answer to your question, as a northerner, then will you say it is ethical to accuse others based on either perception or intelligence that has not been proven, whether it was ethical to do that?
Well, intelligence, before you act on intelligence, you are certified about its credibility. It doesn't need to be proven. Otherwise, it will cease to be intelligence. And I'm not aware that in the North, there is what the distinction you are trying to make. You know, I'm not aware that there's that distinction you are trying to make. So maybe I don't understand your question.
What I'm saying is that, as you know, I mean, if you are in my family, now you'll be heading towards the family head. And you know that in the North, we just don't go around speculating. We see it as unethical to be speculating something that cannot be proven or something that is based on hearsay. I thought that's how you brought us up as senior brothers.
Mr. Chairman, I disagree entirely with his interpretation. I am not sure whether you really grew up in the North.
Kumasi FM.
Well, you nominee, who is my senior brother, knows very well that even though I didn't grow up in the North, I grew up in a setup that is very similar to the North, which is the Zongo community in Kumasi.
No, I grew up in the North. I grew up there, the custom and everything. I didn't mix it with foreign culture.
Are you saying, while you are saying that the Zongo culture is diluted with foreign culture, is that the understanding I'm getting from you?
To tell you is that there's a community of, look, there are not only Northerners in the Zongo. All the tribes are there, right? So it's an amalgam. A culture is developed which is different from what we back home practice. That's what I'm saying.
But you agree with me, if you go to Tamale or Baga or Wa, it's not one tribe or two tribes that are there. Almost all the tribes are there too.
I'm talking about where I come from.
I thought I heard you say you grew up in Boku or something.
Yes, and in Boku, when there is actionable intelligence, you act on it.
Chairman, earlier the nominee said that the Dr. Obeda Samoa was not his boss. Did I hear right?
And he was not my boss. He was an attorney general. I was his deputy. That doesn't make him a boss over me.
So, when you become if this House approves of your nomination, you become the special prosecutor. Your deputies, are you going to be their boss, or they are just deputy special prosecutor?
There will be deputies. I'll be primus inter pares. First among equals.
Kumasi FM.
So was Dr. Asamoah first among equals?
Sure. I did most of the cases, got to the law reports. He didn't write them for me. He didn't read for me. I did it on my own steam. I did it before he even came there as acting attorney general. So how can he be my boss?
Mr. Nominee, Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee what is his general view about judgment death. So I find out your general view about judgment death in our country.
Judgment death is such a wide subject that it will be difficult for me to give a general view about it. All I know is that when you go to court and win a case, you have to enforce it. And that is why the case I won in court should be enforced. But there was a committee on judgment that they issued a white paper. I haven't bothered to bother my head about it, because if you read my paper, I have said that commissions of inquiries, because we don't have commissions of inquiry implementation acts, right, they tend to die on the drawing board. No action is taken. You can't even prosecute. The judgment is equivalent to that of a high court, right? And yet there is no procedure to prosecute. Under Nkrumah, they said that once there's a finding, the onus shifts to the defendant. There's no plea taken to come and prove that he didn't do it. So there was. Now we don't have it. That is why it's difficult to prosecute results of committees of inquiry. If you go and start a fresh prosecution, you will be faced with a judgment of a high court. And you can't go beyond it. So that is the problem with the judgment that I know. As for the whole report of the Judgment Death Commissioner, I read selectively those which affected cases I had sent to court.
Kumasi FM.
Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee, as he walks gradually into the office of the Special Prosecutor, if there's any judgment that, will he be interested in knowing the details and possibly finding out if there are culprits for them to be dealt with?
I'm not going to that office looking for victims. I'll be going to that office to deal with cases that have been investigated or reported, and if they are prosecutable, prosecute them. I'm not going to make it my job being a complainant in cases. Somebody has to complain. The case has to be investigated. It will come to me as if it needs to. And then an opinion will be given. But I'm not going to start the job by fishing for people. That will not be fair.
Mr. Chairman, in an earlier answer to a question about what happened when he was Minister for Interior at Fire Service, and he said that when he got to the Attorney General's office, when later he became the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, reporting that somebody picked the files and said that people from above, knowing who you are, did you try to find out who were those above and giving those instructions?
Mr. Chairman, I said that the documents were collected from the DPP. And it transpired that my deputy was instructed to collect them just in case I decided to prosecute them. And I just thought that, well, if the deputy wants to handle it, let him handle it. And then not long after I left. But the documents can never get missing. They will be there. Several attorney generals have come, they haven't dealt with them. It's not my duty to go looking for them.
No, it's not about...
It's not my duty to go looking for them.
It's not about now. It is when you had the opportunity, because you were then the Attorney General, if others had instructed and knowing who you are vigilante as you are, I'm going to inquire who and be able to challenge, because you've adduced a lot of evidence this morning or even afternoon telling us how you challenge the status quo, which is a very good thing. I wanted to find out that in this particular instance, why didn't you challenge the status quo by trying to find out who is trying to prevent prosecutions from happening?
What once bitten, twice child. When I tried to challenge the status quo, you know the consequences.
When you wanted to what?
When I tried to challenge the status quo, you know the consequences.
But this was after. That one happened before this one.
Yes, and I'm saying my deputy was instructed to take the dockets. And I didn't want to create a confusion in my ministry by fighting my deputy. And he was a lawyer. And I knew the dockets would be there even when I had left. So why ruffle feathers?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
I mean, if they say that I'm a vigilante, it does not mean that I'm foolhardy. I use common sense. The situation didn't demand me to fight over it. And I have told you that one of them was somebody's cousin. Right? So it was better to leave the docket there in the hope that one day somebody will use it. And I'm not foolhardy or Don Quixote fighting the windmill. I mean, credit me with some discretion that there are certain situations common sense does not dictate that I should fight.
Well, Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, the nominee picks and chooses which one he mentioned, because he has said severally here he would not want to talk about the nurse, he would not want to talk about Charlotte because she's not here. But he freely told us about Batodro taking fast when he's not here.
Chief Whip, that is not an allegation of wrongdoing. Don't confuse. When you say, I will not say something which will prejudice an investigation, it means that what he has in mind may be termed as wrongdoing. He says, Anas is not here. If I make things about him, he cannot respond. But if he says, my boss took it, that is not an allegation of wrongdoing. So I think the comparison is not fair. So you can ask another question, please.
Well, Chairman, I will not want to litigate this. But if you say somebody has taken a file, that's why the prosecution has not happened. I don't know how it will be understood by anybody listening to us. But that is why. He didn't say that is why. He said someone was someone's nephew. It clearly shows that it is because of that nephew or niece, if I heard him, that's why it didn't happen. And those listening to us, how does that information go to them? Well, I said I will not litigate.
Very well, but you see, if you pick and choose, as you suggest, this issue about somebody being somebody's nephew was an answer given to an earlier question. And the link was not to Martin Amidu, if I understood him correctly, if I'm wrong correctly. Sorry? It wasn't to Martin Amidu. It wasn't. That is what the person who said, no. So how do you link it to Martin Amidu?
I don't think we need to.
Please. My ruling is that you should ask another question.
We need to respect that ruling. Mr. Chairman, when it came to the issue about an article that the nominee wrote accusing Honorable Ablakwa of hiding behind a name, and unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, he said all manner of things accusing Honorable Ablakwa. When Honorable Ablakwa came out to say that I am not the one, this is not me, the person even came out and said that I am the one writing. I thought my senior brother Martin Amidu will have made some comment about either apologizing or maybe calling Ablakwa. I don't know why he didn't do that, because then if it was perception, now somebody has come out to say that I am the one doing it. He himself has said, I'm not the one doing it. Can I know why he didn't try to call Ablakwa to, as his maybe son or probably far younger brother, apologize to him that maybe perception was that you, but now that you say it's not you, I think that's okay.
Mr. Chairman, there was an argument between the honorable member, who is a member of this committee, and me. I today am here as a nominee. It is very unethical, simply because I'm here as a nominee, for an argument between me to try to be vindicated just because I'm a nominee. I think it's most unfair. Because I happen to be a nominee, you take advantage of it when he's also a member of the committee and know that he's going to vote on my approval or not. You are raising matters pertaining to him. I don't think that is ethically fair.
Honorable nominee, the issue I think the Chief Whip is raising is that you made accusations against a member. I mean, whether or not a member. Later, it was proving that, indeed, the reason for which you make the allegation, that article or whatever, it was not him. Is that the case?
Mr. Chairman, I insist that it was for him, and I said that I don't believe all the denials. I've written it. Okay. And I still believe, as I sit here, that those were all ruses.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Mercy FM.
I want to know from the nominee, since he's even repeating it here, that he still believes in it. Is it based on facts? Because you've been saying evidence, perception. Is it based on facts?
Chairman, it's based on analysis of the internet, the facts disclosed by the internet, which I argued about. So that was the internet factual things, open source. It's on open source. And nobody can compel me not to believe in something which analysis of open source makes me to think creditably that factually he did it. And I said what he was saying was just an afterthought. And I am yet to be convinced that it wasn't an afterthought. That is why I think that it's unfair, because I'm a nominee, for you to try to get me to make an admission which I have said clearly I don't believe in.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee when he wrote that the 7th Parliament should do well to stay away from the bad ways of the previous Parliament. I just wanted the nominee to mention maybe some of the bad ways he knew the Parliament, the 1st to 6th Parliament, might have been involved in, that he wanted the 7th Parliament to stay away from.
Yes, Chairman, I haven't read that article. I don't know what was contained in it.
Mr. Chairman, I made a comment about a parliament that has been abrogated, whose term had ended, right? I don't see why I should explain what it did when I had written profusely about what it was doing. I've written about what it was doing.
Did the article contain what those things that...
No, I was just admonishing the new parliament to chart a new path. You know, and as I said, there are several articles which I wrote, and they were in defense, in excess of my rights on the Article 3. There are many. You know, so if you want me to, and I've said that I don't carry all my articles in my head.
Well, Mr. Chairman, maybe the reason I'm asking is that many of us sitting around this table even now had come from, the majority that has come from even the 2nd Parliament to date. It may be useful to guide us. Having been in the public service since 1983, that's much longer than many of us, with the exception of the like of Honorable Yelitre. It could be useful if you say the current Parliament should chart a new path to know some of the, but I thought that's a fair thing. In a way, advising how we should do, so that we ought to, because all of us aspire to be the best that our citizenry really want us to be.
Chairman, I wrote about contracts which I thought were not properly approved and all that. And when I wrote my article on this 7th Parliament, I remember even the majority leader agreeing with some of the things I said. But you don't expect me, I wrote about contracts which I thought were approved, which should not have been approved and all that, And those were the things I meant. Unfortunately, the parliament has ceased to exist. It cannot resurrect again. So I wouldn't keep misdeeds in my head.